And hello guys, welcome to another class lesson. Here we are, here we go, we're going to get started. First things first, do now. Again, I don't leave you a lot of time in the videos, so that way the videos go quicker and smoother. So go ahead and pause this page. You need to set up your note page. Reminder, your note page doesn't have to look like this. It doesn't have to follow that Cornell style. It's just a suggestion. As long as you have the objective and then your notes, you are good. And make sure you're tracking the key terms. You can track them separately or on cards or any other way you want to do it. And then for your do now, you don't have a chat box. So just on the side, think of this. Make sure it's fresh in your mind. Write down or think of the 3 causes of European exploration. So what were the 3 causes? Name them, ID them, spot them. So go ahead and pause this now. Now we're going to move on. So our objective, key terms, and big brain question. So today we're going to explain the causes of the Colombian Exchange and its effect on Europe and the Americas during the period after 1492. So post-1492, post-Columbus, what were the effects? Key terms are up there. I'm not going to read them all to you, but they go in order. And then our big brain question of the day. Think about significant long-term effects of the Colombian Exchange that we can feel even into today. It doesn't necessarily have to go to 2020, but it should be close. It should be something that lasted a long period of time, more than 100 years. If it didn't last over 100 years, don't even talk to me about it. So think about those things as we move forward. If you need time on this slide, please pause it now. And we're moving on. So, quick announcements, 2 things. Use your own words in your exit tickets or on questions that I give you or assignments. Please do not just quote my notes back to me without quotation marks. I've noticed that happening, especially yesterday. Do not do it, guys, please. It doesn't help you. It's not good. It's just free credit. Just please try to do them in your own words. Obviously, you're at home. You can use your notes. Use your notes to support what you're saying, but put it in your own words. Please, I'm begging you, put it in your own words. It will really help you. Now, last thing, if you miss a day of class and are catching up through videos like this one, that's awesome. That's great. But please reach out to me so I can get you the exit ticket or the class assignments. So that way you're not falling behind. I don't want you to lose credit or get zeros for being out of class. That shouldn't happen. So just let me know, hey, I missed class. I'm going to watch the video. How can I give you my exit ticket? Right now, if you're just a little late or something, or you missed, your internet was messing up, and you managed to get your exit ticket submitted in Google Classroom, that's fine. But make sure you're letting me know if you miss the time frame, especially for in-class assignments, which tend to have shorter ones. Whoop, sorry. Now let's move on to our title. We are talking about the Colombian Exchange, Spanish exploration, and conquest. So we're going to talk about all those things. Again, this was recorded on the 19th. We already went over our objective. I'm not going to spend much time more on it. Just here it is. If you need it because you didn't get it earlier, go ahead and pause as we move forward. So, European colonies. Couple of things, right? We saw this map yesterday. Check out this one. This is kind of the path that Europeans took on their route. So, you see a lot of Spain, the Spanish, who followed Columbus. They came in through the Caribbean, Cuba, and into Central and South America right here. Actually, this is Central America leading up into North America. You have the French, who came in through Canada, through the top right here, and came down and all the way around. These are their paths. Russia, and we're not even going to talk about Russia. And then the English, when they eventually arrive, will land here initially and then through down a little further south later on. The Dutch literally only land in one place, that's New York. We'll talk a little bit more about the Dutch in New York later. But these are the routes that the Europeans took, and obviously later on as we go, this is what their colonial possessions will look like. Again, we're not going to talk about Russia. They don't really do anything with this. They're not in a position to. So let's move forward to the first key point of the day. Key point 1. The Colombian Exchange brought new crops to Europe from the Americas, stimulating European population growth. These new sources of mineral wealth facilitated the European shift from feudalism to capitalism. From feudalism to capitalism. That is the change that is helped, spurred along, made quicker, made easier by the Colombian Exchange. Now, what does that mean? Well, we're going to talk about it here. Feudalism, if you don't know, was an old medieval system of government. Basically, nobility held the lands and they distributed the resources all downwards. So the king, all the land was his, and he picked people who were just below him, who had big chunks of land, who then picked people who distributed below, blah, 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 all the way down until you got to the peasants who got nothing. That's feudalism, right? The nobility controls the trade, the means of production, everything. Capitalism is a much more modern system. It's an economic system where the state does not control this, but the people do. Individual people own the resources and own the means of production for trade. So that shift is helped along by the Colombian Exchange. So if you need this slide, I'm going to go ahead and leave it up for a few seconds. Pause it, please. And let's move on. Let's look at the Colombian Exchange itself. Now, this image, I love it. I use it every year. If we were in class, we'd be doing a gallery walk of the Colombian Exchange probably today. But given that we're not in class, we're not going to be able to do that. Maybe I'll try to figure out a digital way to do it. But for now, just know things like pumpkins, squash, turkeys. Turkeys is big. Peanuts, potatoes, tomatoes, maize, corn, all came from the Americas, where they were at, to Europe. Peppers. Peppers is another big one. Tobacco. We were talking about tobacco yesterday when we were talking about spices. Tobacco is another big one. Cacao is where you get chocolate from. Beans, vanilla, all sorts of awesome stuff goes to Europe from the Americas. Now here, Europe to the Americas, you've got citrus, onions, olives, turnips, coffee beans, which end up doing really wonderful things in South America. Honeybees, sugarcane, peaches, grains like wheat and rice came to the Americas from Europe. Livestock, this is big. Cattle, pigs, horses. Horses came from Europe. There were no horses in North America until the Europeans brought them over. Now, however, this right here, disease. Disease is probably the most significant thing to travel from Europe to the Americas, especially when you talk about natives and their populations. Natives are never going to truly bounce back from these devastating diseases, right? Their population is never going to be high as it is in that point. Now, when we talk about major impacts, long-term impacts, I want you to think of things that affect us today. So for one, you wouldn't have Thanksgiving turkey if it wasn't for the Colombian Exchange, because Europeans would have never adopted it, right? Turkey is a big deal. Another one would be things like coffee. You know, my fuel, you all know that coffee fuels me and everything I do. Yes, I paused to take a sip because, it's what I do. And of course, you would never have devastated native numbers if it wasn't for this Colombian Exchange. We can get into more. I'm going to give you a really detailed look at one thing that I think was super important and significant. So on the next slide, I'm going to do that. That is horses. Do not have to write this down. This is not a part of your notes. This is just extra. This is something I wanted to talk about because it's something that I really find awesome. Horses weren't in North America before the Europeans arrived. So during this time, what that means is pre-1492, sorry. There were no horses. Plains tribes that we talked about in the Great Plains that hunted buffalo, followed buffalo herds, all did it on foot. They all just walked around and tracked them and hunted them slowly, carefully, quietly. That image you think of when you think of like the Plains Indian riding the horse, chasing him down with a bow, that comes way later. That's way later. Those are like Lakota and Sioux well after the horse has been discovered. Now, when Europeans introduced the horse, a lot of native tribes took so quickly, super quickly, they took to it. Some tribes more than others, of course, but tribes loved that stuff. Now, without the Colombian Exchange, native resistance would never have gone the way it did. That was my phone going off. Throughout the years, it would have looked very different, and it probably would have never been as great and grand as it was. You don't get the Battle of Little Bighorn without that Colombian Exchange. You don't get guys like Sitting Bull fighting for over 100 years, resisting the American expansion without that. You don't get this image is a real image. These two are real images without horses being there. So horses greatly changed that, and that's something that happened in 1492 that Europeans weren't even thinking about when it happened, right? They didn't even think twice about like, oh, let's bring horses. It wasn't even a thought. They didn't think about how vastly it would improve. It was just something that happened. The events like is cut off, but it is the Little Bighorn. Events like the Battle of Little Bighorn, which was a cavalry battle where a bunch of U.S. cavalrymen were ambushed, attacked, and destroyed by 2,000 natives. This is the biggest force of natives that'll ever happen in the late 19th century. By this time, there's very few sized tribes that big. And it's not one tribe, it's a big confederation of tribes. But we'll talk about it more later. That's a little bit of foreshadowing for you. And with that, let's move a little forward, right? We're going to move forward now. So, here are some portrayals of natives, right? Pre-natives, meeting, talking, just getting to know you. I like this portrait. You see John Smith showing up in Virginia, talking to the kings, talking to the natives. Just interesting portraits, primary sources, things you need to know from the 1500s. Let's move on. let's move on. Let's talk about key point 2 coming up. Here is key point 2. Improvements in maritime technology. Maritime means oceans, sea technology. Organized methods for conducting international trade, such as joint stock companies, helped drive changes to European economies and economies in the Americas. So, what does that mean? Well, changes in technology and changes in international trade and government are part of what helped make these changes in Europe and the Americas happen. You don't get those changes without those new developments, which we're going to talk about in the next slide. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to pause if you need to write this. And then we're going to move on. So, innovations breed colonization. What does that mean? You don't get colonization the way it happened, the way it took hold, without innovations in technology. So, first things first, we got the caravel. This is a new style of ship, squared sails, long hauls across oceans. Basically, you are able to actually maneuver and go faster over oceans. This is a better ocean-bearing vessel. Believe it or not, it's really hard to travel the oceans in those big, weird ships that they had pre this time period. All right, those of you that are thinking like Viking longships, those are very small ships. Those also aren't as good as caravels, right? It comes along later. It's one of those things that needed to happen in order for colonization to even take place. Magnetic compasses, magnetic north. Hey, we can actually know where north is at all times. That was a big deal. The astrolabe was able to calculate longitude, latitude on a map, so you actually knew right there. It's not perfect. It's very old school. You needed to actually look at the moon and stuff, but it helped. And then the printing press, which allowed knowledge to travel faster. Think like manuals. Kind of in the same way that with YouTube, everybody's kind of a repair person now, right? You can say like, I'll watch a video on YouTube. I'll be able to fix it right around the house. This is like the YouTube of the 1500s. Printing presses, back before it was just you either knew it or you didn't. It took a long time to learn it. Now with the printing press as it is a lot easier to just be able to figure it out, in other words. So I'll leave this up. You don't need everything here, but you need a few, especially caravel. As we move forward. So, pause it if you need it, and then we're going to move forward to the next key points. Alright guys, let's move forward. Alright, so, key point 3. Spanish exploration and conquest of the Americas was accompanied and furthered by widespread deadly epidemics that devastated native populations and by the introduction of crops and animals not found in the Americas. So what does that mean? Well, new animals, new crops, new people all brought with them diseases that natives were not at all prepared for. They had no immunity to them, things that wouldn't affect Europeans anymore because Europeans had years and years and generations of immunity were devastating to natives. There's a bunch, that picture of the Colombian Exchange from the top of the lesson has a bunch on there, like just the flu. But one main one, a major one, and a big deal to this day was smallpox. Smallpox, this is a portrait from the 1500s showing, what happened with smallpox. I believe this is 1500, but in this time period specifically, is around where this was taken, this drawing. This is an image of somebody dying of smallpox. Smallpox is no joke. Smallpox killed a lot of people. It's just something to keep in mind. It is a bad, painful way to die. We're not going to get into how or why, but it is bad and painful. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. Disease in natives. Now, this is going to be part of a practice to make sure that we are solid on hippoing or basically interpreting the documents. We're not going to hippo all three. We're just going to really hippo one or two. And I'm going to show you how to do that on a video moving forward. You do not need to hippo these for any assignment. It's just a way to guide you through hippoing if you forgot, or if you need more practice, or if you just want to see us do it. That'll be in a separate video, though. I don't want to do that here. Much like with the live class, we're doing that separately on a different document. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. If you want to watch that video, check for it on the channel. It'll be there. We're going to move on to independent practice. So today in class, we had an independent practice session since it was a short lesson and since I wanted to kind of get out there and do that. There is hippoing on there. Just 2 documents, though. Different ones from the ones on the slides. So, if you were not in class, if you're watching this just to hear it again, fill in your notes, something like that, that's fine. You already did this. But if you are watching this for the first time because you missed class, you need to send me a message on Teams or an email so I can get this practice to you so you can have it done and submit it to me. So that way you are not missing the assignment. So if you this far, message me, let me know. And that is the same for the exit ticket. Make sure you let me know, hey, Cavazos, I was out of class, I missed class, I watched the video, I need the exit ticket, I need the independent practice. Because if you don't send that to me, not only were you counted absent, but you don't get credit for the assignments because you can't submit them into Google Classroom. So make sure you do that. That's it for me, guys. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any more questions, message me on Teams, send me an email. If you're catching up because you were out a day, definitely message me on Teams, send me an email. That's it for me, guys. Have a good day. I'll see y'all in class.